Brian.
I always felt very sorry for Brian.
Somebody you didn't suspect lurked in there, and this guy got bigger and bigger as the years went by, and also became more self-destructive.
In a flash, millions witnessed the disaster. But what followed was an untold story, a grim, quiet, and largely forgotten saga hidden beneath the waves. The loss of the Challenger was more than a national tragedy. It raised difficult questions about what happened to the crew after the smoke cleared. This rewritten transcript uncovers 6 powerful and haunting facts, from the silent recovery missions to the sacred final tributes that bring us closer to a truth that still stings decades later. One detail in particular will leave a lasting impression. Number 6, the diverse crew of the Challenger. The 7 astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger were a diverse and highly accomplished group who brought expertise, courage, and a spirit of exploration to NASA's 51L mission. The crew was led by veteran pilot and Air Force officer Francis R. Dick Scobie. His co-pilot was Michael J. Smith, a naval aviator on his first shuttle flight. Mission specialists Judith A. Resnick, Ronald E. McNair, and Ellison S. Onizuka each brought unique academic and professional backgrounds to the mission. Resnick was only the 2nd American woman in space, and Onizuka was the first Asian American astronaut. McNair, a physicist, was also a key figure in educational outreach. Gregory B. Jarvis, a payload specialist for Hughes Aircraft, was slated to conduct fluid dynamics experiments in microgravity. The most famous crew member was Krista McAuliffe, a social studies teacher from Concord, New Hampshire. She was selected for the Teacher in Space Project, an innovative program designed to bridge the gap between the classroom and space exploration. McAuliffe's enthusiasm, humility, and poise captivated the nation. In a televised interview, she said, "I still can't believe that I'm going to actually be going into that shuttle." Her inclusion on the flight inspired a generation of students and teachers, giving the mission a deeply personal and relatable dimension. In the final moments before launch, the crew was full of happiness and optimism, waving and smiling at the crowd. This hopeful energy made the ensuing catastrophe all the more tragic. The crew's shared purpose, their willingness to confront the unknown, and their diverse backgrounds embodied the American spirit of inclusion and progress. Each astronaut had overcome personal and systemic barriers to reach the stars, making their presence on the shuttle a symbol of dreams once thought unreachable. Their journey was not just a scientific endeavor, but a testament to human resilience and aspiration. NUMBER-5, the collision of hope and tragedy. The 1980s were a period of immense optimism for space exploration. It's just over a decade after the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing. The momentum of human spaceflight was strong. The U.S. space program shifted from lunar missions to reusable spacecraft, making space more accessible. In 1981, the launch of Columbia, the first space shuttle to complete an orbital mission, ushered in an era of frequent missions and scientific research. NASA's vision was to normalize spaceflight and make it a routine endeavor. The public was captivated by the idea of ordinary people, scientists, engineers, and teachers traveling to space. This vision culminated in the selection of Krista McAuliffe from over 11,000 applicants for the Teacher in Space project. Her mission was to inspire students and demonstrate that space was no longer exclusive to astronauts. Schools across the U.S. planned to watch the launch live, giving millions of children their first real-time experience with a space mission. On January 28, 1986, that hope was shattered. The Challenger exploded just 73 seconds into flight. Millions, including schoolchildren, watched the plume of smoke and fire spiral across the sky. President Ronald Reagan's somber words captured the national sense of loss. "Today is a day for mourning and remembering." The accident confronted the nation with the tangible dangers of space travel and dispelled the idea that the shuttle program was infallible. The investigation found the explosion was caused by a faulty O-ring seal on the right solid rocket booster, a design flaw that engineers had previously flagged. Despite these concerns, pressure to maintain the launch schedule led officials to proceed with the mission. The Challenger's mission was profoundly significant. It carried a tracking and data relay, satellite to improve communications, and a payload to observe Halley's Comet. It was seen as a step toward making space a hub for science, education, and international cooperation. The disaster, however, forever changed NASA's approach. Optimism gave way to caution, and shuttle flights were suspended for nearly 3 years while safety protocols and technical standards were overhauled. The tragedy re-energized public interest in STEM education and teachers' involvement in national programs. The Challenger Center for Space Science Education was founded to honor McAuliffe's legacy, providing hands-on learning experiences for future generations. The Challenger disaster, the morning of January 28, 1986. The Space Shuttle Challenger lifted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida. 73 seconds later, it disintegrated in one of the most devastating tragedies in U.S. space program history. Millions of schoolchildren watched the event live, as it was supposed to be an inspirational moment for education. Instead, it became a national trauma. The mission was to deploy a tracking and data relay satellite and a satellite to observe Halley's Comet. Its historic appeal, however, was tied to Christa McAuliffe, the first teacher in space who was selected from over E10 applicants. Her presence was meant to bring space exploration into American classrooms, but instead, it made the disaster feel even more personal and tragic for millions of students and educators. The investigation attributed the disaster to a defective O-ring seal on the right solid rocket booster. The low temperatures on launch day prevented the O-ring from sealing properly, allowing hot gases to escape and ignite the external fuel tank, causing the vehicle to break apart. Internal reports revealed that engineers had voiced concerns about the O-rings in cold weather, but NASA officials, under pressure to maintain the schedule, overruled them. The disaster was a watershed moment for NASA. The agency suspended all shuttle flights for 3 years to reevaluate its safety culture, engineering oversight, and decision-making processes. The 7 crew members, Commander Francis R. Dick Scobie, pilot Michael J. Smith, mission specialists Judith A. Resnick, Ronald E. McNair, and Ellison S. Onizuka, payload specialists Gregory B. Jarvis and Christa McAuliffe perished. While initial speculation about the cause of death, varied analysis suggests the astronauts likely lost consciousness rapidly from a sudden loss of cabin pressurization. However, a haunting possibility remains that some may have briefly regained consciousness during the nearly 3-minute free fall before the cabin hit the ocean. NASA refrained from releasing graphic details out of respect for the families, but the crew cabin was found mostly intact, containing personal belongings and research materials. A New York Times article reported the remains were not recognizable as human, a stark reminder of the force of the impact. To recovery and identification of the remains at Patrick Air Force Base were a painful but necessary part of the investigation. The Challenger disaster prompted a cultural introspection, revealing communication breakdowns within NASA and its contractors. The Rogers Commission, which included astronaut Neil Armstrong and physicist Richard Feynman, became a defining moment. In the inquiry, with Feynman's blunt demonstration of the O-ring's vulnerability to cold temperatures. Number 3. The state of the bodies following the recovery of the Challenger crew cabin from the Atlantic Ocean. A difficult and sensitive part of the investigation began. Recovery teams faced the grim task of identifying the remains of the 7 astronauts. Due to the public nature of the tragedy, officials handled this with the utmost discretion. Out of respect for the families, NASA withheld detailed descriptions, with one official stating, "We really don't want to say anything else," in deference to the families. Despite this, limited information surfaced. The New York Times reported that the remains were so badly damaged they could not be recognized as human. A tragic detail underscoring the immense forces at play. The crew cabin, though largely intact, free fell for nearly 2 minutes and 45 seconds before a violent impact with the ocean surface. Investigators concluded that these forces were enough to cause fatal injuries. Most experts believe the crew lost consciousness within seconds of the initial breakup due to rapid depressurization in the cabin. The shuttle was not equipped with pressure suits or emergency breathing systems, making post-accident survival impossible. While some theories suggest a brief survival period was possible for some crew members, there is no conclusive evidence. NASA chose not to speculate on these matters to spare the families further pain. The crew compartment was taken to Patrick Air Force Base Hospital, where a specialized team from the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology performed the identification. The extreme trauma made traditional identification difficult. After identification, the crew members' remains were cremated. In a gesture of unity, their ashes were mixed and interred in a single grave at Arlington National Cemetery, a solemn national acknowledgement of their sacrifice. Astronauts Scobee and Smith also have individual graves within the cemetery. Number 2. Tributes and memorials in the years since the Challenger disaster. The 7 astronauts have been honored with numerous tributes. The most significant is at Arlington National Cemetery, where the commingled remains of all 7 crew members are buried in a single grave. This site, in Section 46, Grave 1129, is a lasting symbol of national grief and the cost of human space exploration. Individual graves for Commander Francis R. Dick Scobee and pilot Michael J. Smith also exist within the cemetery. The memorial at Arlington is inscribed with a poignant excerpt from the poem High Flight by Royal Canadian Air Force pilot John Gillespie Magee, Jr. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. These words connect the Challenger crew to a long tradition of aviation heroes and elevate their story to one of both human loss and aspirational triumph. Other memorials can be found across the country, including a small monument in Montpelier, Vermont, and the Space Mirror Memorial at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The Space Mirror Memorial is a large polished slab of black granite that reflects the sky, with the names of 24 astronauts, including those from the Challenger, inscribed on its surface. This design creates a powerful visual that suggests the astronauts now belong to the cosmos they sought to reach. Educational scholarships and outreach programs have been established in the crew's names, continuing Krista McAuliffe's mission of public engagement. NASA institutionalized remembrance through its Day of Remembrance, which also honors the crews of Apollo 1 and the Columbia disaster. Today, digital platforms and exhibits, including documentaries and podcasts, ensure that the Challenger crew's legacy continues to touch new audiences. Number 1. The recovery of crew remains in the wake of the Challenger explosion. The immediate priority was to recover the wreckage and the remains of the 7 astronauts. The explosion occurred over the Atlantic Ocean, and while much of the shuttle disintegrated, large components, including the crew compartment, fell into the sea. Led by NASA and the U.S. Navy, with support from the Coast Guard, recovery operations were conducted under strict security. It took until March 9th, over a month after the disaster, for divers to locate the crew compartment on the ocean floor. The cabin was largely intact, despite the forces it had endured. This finding was both a relief and a heartbreaking reality, leading to the grim task of recovering and identifying the crew's remains. It took until April 20th to fully bring the cabin to the surface. Throughout the process, officials maintained a respectful silence about the condition of the bodies, choosing not to release graphic details. An official statement noted, "We really don't want to say anything else in deference to the families." While the cabin was intact, the extreme impact with the ocean severely compromised the remains. The New York Times reported that they could not be recognized as human, a somber indication of the intense trauma. Personal belongings and research materials were also retrieved. The identification process, led by the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, was conducted at Patrick Air Force Base Hospital. Officials were never able to confirm whether any crew members were conscious during the 3-minute descent, though it's believed they lost consciousness almost instantly from rapid depressurization. Ultimately, the remains of the 7 astronauts were cremated. In a gesture of unity, their ashes were commingled and buried together at Arlington National Cemetery under a memorial that honors their sacrifice and commitment to exploration. 2 of the astronauts, Scobee and Smith, also have individual graves, The memorial, which includes a line from the poem High Flight, stands as a national tribute. The recovery and burial were not just logistics, but an act steeped in symbolism, honoring the human cost of scientific progress and preserving the legacy of those who gave their lives to pursue it. The Challenger disaster was a watershed moment in the perception of space exploration. Beyond the smoke and debris were lives, stories, and dreams that were cut short. The events surrounding the crew's loss stand as a painful reminder that progress often comes at a heavy price. But through recovery, remembrance, and reflection, their legacy was preserved and elevated. These 6 facts reveal the fragile boundary between success and tragedy, human ambition and the cruel concretization of reality. What happened to the Challenger crew's remains is tear-jerking, but it clears the slate of what was lost and honors their courage in leaving Earth, never knowing they would never come back. If this story moved you, make sure to like the video. Leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one.